Okay, as people continue to join, I want to welcome you. Hello, my name is Chelsea Lake. I'm a member of the events team at Politics and Prose Bookstore. I'd like to welcome you to PMP Live. Before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. At any point during the event, you can click on the link that I'll be dropping in the chat to purchase Bird Brother, A Falconer's Journey and the Healing Power of Wildlife. You can also ask a question by clicking on the Q&A, which can be found along the bottom of your screen. We'll try to get to everybody's question, but I apologize in advance if we don't have time to address yours. We are delighted to offer closed captioning via Zoom's auto captioning service. To access those captions, just click on the live transcripts option, which is also along the bottom of your screen. Now it is my pleasure to introduce this afternoon's speakers. Rodney Stotts is a master falconer, educator, and the founder and director of Rodneys Raptors. When he's not on the sanctuary property located in Laurel, Maryland, Rodney lives on 7 acres in Charlotte Courthouse, Virginia, where he's working to turn the property into a haven for underprivileged youth and anyone who's interested in learning about falconry, wildlife, and conservation. The finished project will be called Dippys Dream, after Rodney's deceased mother. His work has been featured in National Geographic, NPR, and other national outlets. He is the subject of the documentary, The Falconer. Stotts will be in conversation with Kate Pipkin. Pipkin is a writer and editor living and working in Baltimore. She has contributed to the Baltimore Sun, Baltimore Magazine, Johns Hopkins Magazine, and many more. All right, without further ado, I'll turn the screen over to Rodney and Kate. Welcome.
Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you very much. And yes, just a reminder that people can post questions in the Q&A. So, hi, Rodney.
Hey, Kate, how are you today?
I am well also. Rodney's coming to us from Virginia, his property in Virginia, and he'll talk a little more about that in a minute. I thought it might be a good way to start, Rodney, for you, since we have a pretty diverse audience here. If you could just briefly tell people you're a master falconer, what falconry is, and also how does it benefit wild birds of prey?
Well, falconry is the oldest land sport. Falconry is the actual sport of hunting birds of prey. So what you would actually do is trap a wild bird, usually juveniles, because the adults you don't want to take out of the wild. Juveniles, a good 90% won't make it through their first winter. So falconers only trap juveniles. We'll take that juvenile, we'll work with them, we'll get that juvenile to agree to let us help them hunt for that winter. After that winter's over, we'll release that bird because now that bird has like a 90% chance of survival and reproducing. So falconry is the oldest land sport known to man. As far as conservation, with falconry, falconers actually save species because with so many not making it through that first winter, when falconers trap those juveniles, now you have another bird that has a chance to make it. So we kind of stop the population from becoming endangered and or extinct.
What are some of those, I want to move on to more about you, but what are some of those dangers that they face in that first year of their lives?
Well, a lot of it is humans, us. A lot of farmers put out pesticides and things. They'll put out traps to stop the birds from eating chickens and stuff like that. You have a lot of poisons and contaminants that they get into. Just natural accidents, hit by cars. A lot of them are along the highways during the wintertime when the trees are bare. So you'll see them as you're riding down. They see something get hit crossing the road. You'll see that bird then fly down and try to get an easy meal because it's starving and ends up getting hit by a car itself. So a lot of it, when a falconer traps that juvenile, you basically take it away from all of that.
Okay, thanks. So on to you a little bit. You have talked to me and others a lot about how you've always been attracted to animals ever since you were little. Can you talk a little bit about some of that early experience? You grew up in Southeast DC in the projects of Southeast DC, but yet you still found several ways to interact with animals.
Well, my mom, only thing she wouldn't allow me to have was snakes because she was definitely afraid of snakes. So anything else that I wanted, I could have: fish, mice, tarantula. She would even let you have something like it just wasn't a snake. So I always loved animals. I've never really been a people person. I'm not big on people. Give me an animal any day. I don't care if it's a goldfish, an ant, anything, just something that it's something about that animal that relaxes me, takes me somewhere else, calms me down, clears my mind. I can go to my bird right now and I'm upset about something. I can holler and scream and get everything out. And at the end, my bird's just gonna look at me and shake her head and shake her tail and go to hug me. So just give me my animals. Yes.
And once you were in school, what did you do? How did you, once you were old enough to,
I used to hook school. What I would do is take my books and start doing all the assignments in the book. So when it came time to turn it in, all you do is put a date on it. So I would go to Woodley Park Zoo, catch the bus down to Pennsylvania Avenue, jump on the subway, get off, and walk up to Woodley Park Zoo and go in and spend the day at the zoo. And so I just loved animals. So I would go in each day pretty much sit and study something for hours, whether it was a bird one day, a giraffe the next day, a hippopotamus the next day, whatever it was, I just would go and I just loved animals. And then there was just, with the birds themselves, was this whole different feeling. I guess because they can fly, just the thing of taking off and being above all of the pettiness. There's a saying that bald eagles don't fly through the storm, they fly above it. So
I've never heard that. I like it. So Rodney, when you started coming of age in Southeast DC, it was the crack epidemic was starting to explode. We're talking late 80s, early 90s. You got pulled into that world a little. But then in 1992, you accepted a job offer with the Earth Conservation Corps. Can you talk a little bit about that time and how you sort of got that job and why?
Well, what happened was when you're hustling, you don't get W-2s. So I had to get something that would show where my money was coming from. I'm not like I said, not really a big people person. I can't be in an office building. I think it's like an asylum to me. I just go crazy inside of them. And I love to be outside. So I went to a job fair. There were two jobs there. One was cleaning office buildings and the other was working on Lower Beaver Dam Creek, which is a tributary to the Anacostia River. It's outside. It's animal related. However, it was only $100 a week. And at that time, that was a ridiculous amount to be paying someone, especially when they're selling 8 balls at $125 a piece and you're selling 10, 20, 30 of them a day. You settle for $100 a week.
So that was probably almost a little laughable to you, but your plan was only to stay for a little while, right? Get some pay stubs and get your own digs.
Pretty much. I had the apartment. The program itself was originally set up for 3 months. What we did in those 3 months of pulling out the tires and car engines and everything, it got the attention of Lockheed Martin, and they wanted us to come and do a bayou down in Texas. Well, one of our former Corps members, our founding Corps members, was brutally raped and murdered in Texas 3.5 months into our program. And so that was one of the things that put a halt on the program for a while until we all came back together and decided that we had to start doing things to honor that particular person, Monique Johnson. And then we started losing other members over the years. And so it just kept going from there. So I started the program just so I can have a check stub. I ended up with a family.
Mm-hmm. So the first job with Earth Conservation Corps when Monique was still living was you were pulling trash out of the Anacostia River, which obviously that was almost sort of in your backyard. So was it gross? Was it?
Well, no, not necessarily gross. It was more disappointing because I know that I was a part of the reason that all of that trash ended up in the river, meaning we were riding down the street in a car and you throw something out the window, the trash can overflowed. Instead of you picking it up and getting everything back and putting it in, you just left it. So a heavy rain comes, all of that stuff ends up in the river. Now, I never found any of my own personal mail or anything. However, there was enough stuff in there that that you were a part of this. And so when you started cleaning it up and pulling out 5,000 tires and car engines and motorcycles and sofas and shopping carts and everything, you start seeing fish and turtles and great blue herrings and everything start to come back. It made you want to do it a little more and more and more each day because you were, in a sense, giving back the home that you took away.
So you were all young at the time, all from more or less Southeast, somewhere in Southeast DC. Monique's murder really shattered your group. I mean, you could have walked away at that point and said, I got to get back to my whatever I was doing, but you didn't.
Well, when we all started getting close in the beginning of Earth Conservation Corps, it was a lot of hostility amongst everyone. The more and more we worked together, the closer and closer we became. At that time, even though we were trying to do something positive, we were still in the environment where all the negativity was going on. So we all made promises to each other that if something was to ever happen to any one of us, that we would continue and whatever we did would be in their name. So if you look at basically any interview, anything that I've ever done, you will hear Monique, Tink, Benny, and James, 4 of the original 9 Corps members. 3 were murdered, 1 passed from health complications.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that's not an easy memory to have. So let's move on a few years, and just a reminder to everyone that you can put questions in the Q&A if you want to. So you were working with, or you were still working with Earth Conservation Corps, but you had all you kind of moved to taking in injured birds of prey. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that led to your next step?
Yes, what happened was we started a program where we were reintroducing bald eagles to the nation's capital because they hadn't nested there in over 50 years. So with the work that we were doing along the Anacostia, which was now starting to be able to sustain life more, we got a grant to do a project. So for 4 years, we had 4 baby eaglets. We built a hack box and put it at the National Arboretum. And we would hack 4 eaglets back into Washington, D.C. area every year. We would put tracking devices on them. They flew off, we tracked them. 3 years later, actually, we started seeing nesting pair of eagles in DC. Well, the nest starting to be built in DC. They don't mature until they're about 4.5 years old. That's when they get the white head and white tails, and that's when they're able to breed. So the first babies that we actually saw were, I believe it was 98, 99. The first eaglet babies were actually flying around in DC again, which hadn't flown there in over 50 years. So we started a program. Because we had adjudicated youth, we had injured, non-releasable birds. So for years, well over a decade, we were doing programs taking youth that had been adjudicated. So
can you explain what that means to somebody who might not know?
Adjudicated youth are arrested youth, people that have been locked up, they're going through the system. They have all these like vagrant charges and things of that nature held against them. Some were on probation, some were headed to prison. It was like a diversionary program and things of that nature. And so if someone came that had never been arrested before, basically you couldn't join the program because it was for adjudicated youth. So some years went by and one day I went to them and asked them, why don't we have birds before they get injured, like we should be trying to get to the young people before they become adjudicated youth? And they said, well, you have to become a falconer. I said, okay, well, I'll be a falconer. And people started laughing just like that. Everyone started laughing and I didn't understand what was the joke. I didn't know that there weren't a lot of black falconers. I didn't know that falconry itself was supposed to be this secluded group type of thing or anything. So I just knew I'd been working with birds for up to 15 years at that point. Why not just get a license to be a falconer? And now I can trap wild birds. And in that process, if no one stepped in and helped that bird the same way no one stepped in and helped that young person, that bird becomes injured or dead. That young person becomes a product of the system or the cemetery.
So, Rodney, you say, why don't I just get a license? But it's not that easy. Can you talk a little bit about? Can you talk a little bit about that the process that you went through to get to the level of master falconer?
Well, the thing is not that it's not easy to do. It's not easy to get into. Well, it wasn't for me because I'm African-American black guy. I was told black people don't fly birds, y'all eat them. These aren't chickens, these are hawks, stuff like that. So a lot of it more or less is just finding someone to sponsor you. If you find your sponsor, third-year general master falconer, that person sponsors you, you'll take a test, you pass the test, you'll build your aviary, which is the house that your birds stay in. They'll come out, do the inspection, make sure everything is right, everything is legal, you're not going to harm that bird in any way. Then your sponsor will now take you out trapping. So you're an apprentice for your first 2 years. After the second year, your sponsor will write a letter to Fish and Wildlife saying you should be promoted. Now you're a general falconer. In Maryland, you're a general falconer for 5 years. After 5 years, when you renew your license, you'll become a master falconer. So it takes 7 years to become a master falconer.
So what, it seems like finding a sponsor was one challenge for you. And I don't know if you wanted to do a little plug for Suzanne here or
yes,
what.
Most definitely. Yes, most definitely. Miss Suzanne Shoemaker from Owl Moon Raptor Center is the person who stepped up and sponsored me. I talked to her one day and said that I was looking for a sponsor, and she said, Rodney, I'll sponsor you. And I said, for real? She said, yes. And I was like a kid in a candy store jumping around, and I was happy as all outdoors. And so I went and took the test, and she was the first person I called. I called her before I went, told her I was going to take it, came out, passed the test. I called her, I was crying. I told her, I did it, Miss Suzanne, I got her. She said, boy, I knew you was gonna pass. And that was it.
That's great. So like any sport, falconry takes certain skill, but also a certain way of being. Can you talk a little bit about what falconry demands of the falconer? Does that make sense?
Sure. No. Well, what it actually does, falconry makes you become someone else. You can holler and scream at the bird all day long. The bird doesn't understand what you're hollering and screaming about. So now you have to find ways. That bird makes you find ways to solve problems. It makes you think. It makes you move. It makes you do all of these different things. It stimulates parts of your brain that you never even thought you had because you hadn't had to use them. So you have to figure out how to deal with this, how to do this, how to get this bird to trust me to sit on my hand, how to get this bird to trust me enough to bend down and eat, how to get this bird to hop to me, to fly to me, to follow me, how to get this bird to do all of these things. You have to figure that out, because no matter what someone tells you, every single bird has its own personality, just like we do. Because there's a species of that species doesn't mean they're all going to do the same thing. So you may have a bird that you caught today, you're flying them within a week. You have another bird that you caught today, he won't even set on your glove. He's still baiting off your hand a week later. So every one of them has their own personality. So that bird will definitely make you learn patience. It will definitely make you learn problem-solving skills. It just makes you think. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's what I was going to ask. What did you learn from being? What sort of personal things did you learn from, or are you still learning from being a falconer?
Right, you're always going to be learning, because each bird you get is going to test you in a different way. So with me, the patience, the understanding, humbling of you don't know everything, you're not perfect, you can't do this all the time. You know, you have to put your ego aside when you're a falconer, because it will humble you. You can think you are the greatest, and then that bird's not doing any of the stuff that you thought you were so high and mighty, and it will break you. So it puts your ego in check. It just makes you really stop. And in life, actually, it'll start switching over, because things that happen in life, you'll look at like you're training that bird in a sense. And before you react, you'll think. And it'll start to make you, wait a minute, before I do this and get myself in trouble, there's another way of doing it. So it's all really about changing the way you think.
So, Rodney, once you became a master falconer, you started, you started, and now or I guess you founded, and now you run a nonprofit called Rodneys Raptors. What's sort of the purpose of that organization?
Well, I'm waiting on my 501c3 status to come in now. I started Rodneys Raptors really because it was more for anyone. It wasn't so much of young people between the ages of 18 and 25. So what about the lady that's 41 that's hurting? What about the man that's 62 that's, so mine was more or less about being able to share it with everyone. When I was out flying my birds and people would just stop their cars and pull over and run over and stop and pull out cameras and start talking to me. And I would see how happy it was making them. And no matter what was going on during the course of their day, just that interaction changed them for even that split second. Just like with me, what people don't understand is a lot of what I do is more for healing for me. I've lost a lot of people in my life and I miss them daily, just like my mom. That's why where I'm at now is it's more of a human sanctuary with animals. I'll have the horses and goats and chickens and birds and everything. However, it's more of a place for people to just be able to come and let it all go for a minute, and then be able to go back into something with a clearer mind, fresher heart at it. Everything where you were studying in that environment, you couldn't think. Well, here's your chance to get away and just think. So it's donation based. It's not, you have to have $1,000. You can have $10. You'll get the same thing that someone who donated $1,000 get. You want to learn how to ride a horse. If you want to learn how to hold a bird and how you go about working with falcons and hawks and things, that you're going to learn all the same things regardless of how much money you have. Because you can't afford something doesn't mean you don't deserve it.
Mm-hmm. So for those of you who are watching and listening, thank you. And what you may not know is that Rodney is coming to you from his property in rural Virginia, 7 acres that you purchased a few years ago. And I like that you call it a human sanctuary. What's sort of I know you're practically single-handedly building this literally from the ground up. What's your sort of vision? When it's finished, what's it going to look like, I guess?
Well, what it'll be is more like a campground / park in a sense, because you don't have to sleep overnight. You can come, you'll have the pitch horseshoes, you'll be able to volleyball, things of that nature, badminton. You can walk the trails, you'll see these different birds. I'm not a birder that can identify the little blue jays and all of those things. However, there's a few different species that are native here that you won't find other places. You can learn to ride horses. You can come brush the horse, give them a bath. You can come and feed the birds. You can come and milk goats. You can come and just lay out in the grass. You come take your shoes off and actually walk in the grass and not be on the concrete all day. Just a place to be able to just come and relax. And if you actually want to pitch a tent and camp out, we have areas where you can actually camp out. If you want to be in there where the horses are, you can. If you want to be on the other side, you can. It's just a place to come and just be free, just relax and let everything go, cry, cuss out a tree, do whatever you had to do. I mean, seriously.
Or hug a tree.
Any of them, an elm tree, a pine tree, a pork tree, any of them that's out there. It's just something that to be able to have a place to just be able to come back to being you. A lot of us are not us anymore. And you need a place just to come back where you can find you again. That's all. I just want to try to offer that if I can.
You've also talked to me a little bit about eventually wanting to have opportunities where young people can learn things like how to grow their own food and that kind of thing. So
Survival, yes, we would want to teach you. If the internet went down right now, 99% of the population would go crazy because they don't know how to shelter, food, clothing, what plants they can eat, how to plant their own vegetables, how do you raise certain animals to make sure that you now have meat, cheese, dairy products, things of that nature. So we want to do like little survival courses over weekends where people come down and learn how to make a fire, how to maintain it, how to make shelter, how to be able to do those things. It's like a lost art. No one goes out in the woods anymore. So I want you to be able to go out in the woods. And if you decided, I want to stay here for 3 days, you would know how to survive.
mm-hmm. Good. So the sanctuary is called Dippys Dream. Are you comfortable talking a little bit about your mom who inspired it?
Oh, of course. Oh, of course. Of course. What would you like to know?
Well, she was a powerful person in your life. And she lived to see you follow this dream of falconry.
Yeah, I tell everyone my mom has always been proud of me. She wasn't always proud of what I was doing. When I was out in the streets and living that thug, fake gangster life nonsense, she was still proud of me, and she wasn't proud of what I was doing. Before she left here, I got to make her proud of what I was doing. To walk in and I had birds flying to her. She would hold a glove and I had a bird fly to her for her birthday and things of that nature. And I mean, my mother, Mary Stotts, Dippy, she was everyone says their mom or father, whoever is the greatest. But for me, that was the greatest thing that could ever happen to my life, period. Supporter is an understatement of what that lady was to me. That's why, one of the main reasons why I want this for her. She used to always tell us she wanted a place for her kids to be able to come home and be whole again. And she passed away before I was able to get this place. So to continue what she wanted, and when she say her kids, she meant everybody. Everybody she met. When my mom passed, there were so many people there telling stories of things that my mother had did for them that I had no idea about, and how these people sat there and how she would give her last for this. And you think you know everything, and it just was, yeah, tremendous. So, oh no, I just want to make sure that lady,
your face lights up when you talk about her. And I don't hear a lot of people ask you about like, hey, man, what was your mom like? So thank you for sharing that with us.
So it's quite all right.
What's that?
I say, oh no, it's quite all right.
Mm-hmm. So so you have this skill of being a falconer, of teaching young people about the environment, about wildlife. I've seen you give several presentations at Patuxent and elsewhere where you really connect with people. For those of us who don't have those skills, how can people kind of get involved, or how can we, you do a lot to sort of heal people who are hurting in various communities, whether they're in urban communities, rural. What can sort of the average person do, I guess, is, I don't know if I'm asking that in a clear way or not, to kind of make a difference? Like, are there in these days of polarization and everything else, is it possible that we could have some kind of collective healing? And what in the heck would that look like if we don't know where to start?
I mean, well, one of the things like what we talked about before is just starting. Whatever it is, say you want to learn a different language, start now. Every word you learn today, teach someone else. Now, at the end of the month, we're all having a conversion because now all of us have learned a new language to a degree, and we just keep building. Start a garden club, even in your neighborhood, one little plant. You would be surprised how many people that sit back and watch because they don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to be the one that step out first. And then when they see it and they see all this happiness and they see that glow around, it just attracts everyone else. So my thing is always, every one of us has a skill. Every single one of us has something. Some people paint, some poets, something. Whatever it is you like to do, teach someone else. Your next door neighbor, hey, guess what? I know how to paint. I have an extra easel right here. Come on over, let me show you how to paint. Now that's something that they can teach their kids, and then they can teach their, and the next, and the next, just anything. We all sit back and say, well, if I only had the time, if I only had this. You sit down and watch this webinar for an hour. You had time to do something in that hour to make a difference in somebody's life, anybody's. And believe me, it passes on. And the biggest thing about it is you're not doing it because you want to have something to say later. You're doing it just because it's who you are. It's what you're supposed to do. When you grew up and you hear all of this, you know, be kind to one another. You love your brother. You love your, so you treat people the way you want to be treated. Well, wouldn't you like the one morning if you were a little short on cash, no one knew, someone bought you a cup of coffee? Wouldn't you like that? Well, why not do that for someone else? $1, something so simple that you just made someone's day. You don't know that person could have got some of the worst news in the world that morning. And that one little small act of kindness, you held the door. Oh, no, don't rush, buddy. Take your time and let them walk from the car to the door. Just something so it didn't cost you a dime.
Yeah.
You made someone's day. That's what I love to see. So anyone can do that.
Do you feel that we could be doing more to teach children about nature, about the benefits of nature? And maybe you could talk about, what do you think about? You said you were outside, you and I talked earlier, you said you were outside working on clearing some land. You were out, spent the morning out in nature. What does that sort of immersion in nature, what does it do for us?
Well,
it's a lot of questions, I guess.
Yeah, no, a lot of times what people don't understand, especially in urban communities, low income communities, you're more worried about eating than what's in that tree or what type of tree this is, or things that if I can't fish in this river, then I'm not going to this river because I need to fish out of this river so I can feed my family. So a lot of times it's out of necessity that people don't end up in nature. However, going out, getting out there, smelling that fresh air, that green grass underneath your feet, that nice breeze off that water or in the park and things of that nature, does something to you, well, to me anyway, mentally. So on the mental side of it, there is your escape. When you're out there and you see that kid just get to running, has no reason why he's running, he just takes off. That's everything that was in him that he had to get out of him, and he had the space to do it. But when you're in your communities, in your neighborhoods, you start running, everyone looks up looking for the police or the gunshots or whatever that's going on. So, you know, you never have a chance to let your guard down. So being able to go out in nature and let your guard down and be vulnerable, that's a beautiful feeling that a lot of us don't get to experience until it's too late.
Thanks. We've got a couple questions coming in, but before we go to those, what if people want to help with Dippy's Dream? I mean, obviously, I know people can make donations, but what do you need to make it a success?
Hands, actually. I mean, I have 5 acres that I'm clearing basically with a chainsaw, a weed whacker. I had a wood chipper. It went down on me the other day. I had a riding lawnmower that went down on me last week. So I'm just in the process of getting everything. So hands, I mean, if people have time to come out, which I totally understand that, you know, everyone has things going on right now. There's a lot with COVID, there's a lot with jobs, a lot with families, everything. So it's not a thing of being upset if people can't. However, you know, each time I'm explaining to people, well, when you come down now, let's do some work while you're here. You know, and whether you donated $10 million or $10 or 10 cents, let's do a little work. Let's get a little dirty. Let's help it for the next people that's coming down. And let's make it better for the next, like when we do with the gardening. Every time we plant the gardens, you come down, you get all the fruits and vegetables you want for free, but you have to plant some for the next people. And that's all we ask.
Nice.
So it's, Yeah, that's more what I can really use in some hands or a tractor. You know, if someone has a tractor that they can let me borrow for a week, that would be beautiful. That's, you know, you can push everything over, everything will be where it need to be. It's just doing it all by hand over 5 acres, which is equivalent to 5 football fields. It's a lot by yourself.
Yeah, it sure is. Let's see. Someone asked about how did you find your sponsor?
Miss Suzanne Shoemaker, actually, when I was running a program out at Wings Over America, which is a sister program to Earth Conservation Corps, Miss Suzanne Shoemaker, by her being a licensed rehabber, was going to be a part of our program. So as we talked, I found out that she was a falconer also. And when I expressed to her that I wanted to become a falconer and what problems I was having finding a sponsor, she told me that she was sponsored. So that's how that whole thing came about. As far as finding my sponsor was Miss Suzanne. Yeah.
Thanks. Let's see. Andrea is asking, can Rodney tell us about a particularly intimate, moving moment he has had with the bird, a moment of connection? Oh, I know what I'm thinking of, but you do that yourself.
You guys can, if you go on any of my social medias, you'll see me and my birds eye to eye, nose to beak. I have birds that literally that hugs me. I have a Eurasian eagle owl that will raise his wings out and take his wing and wrap it around me and leave it there. I mean, everything about him, just walking past, seeing him fly from perch to perch is a moving experience for me, is a blessing for me, because I know that a great majority of the people don't get to see what I get to see every day, don't get to do what I get to do every day. So it's a blessing. So every moment I get to spend with them is a memorable moment to me. I don't love any one of them more than the other. I don't have a favorite animal. I have white mice, dogs, horses, bird. I love every single animal the same because each one of them brings something to my life that the other one doesn't.
Thanks. And I don't think there's a question here, but Leslie says, I was blown away by this book, which I finished in 2 days because I couldn't stop reading it. I'm so inspired and delighted. Congratulations on all the lives you have changed and the many, many more you will change because this story is shared. Let's see. Kay is asking, what are some of the differences you've come across different types of raptors? For example, red-tailed hawk versus Cooper's hawk versus peregrine falcon.
Well, red-tailed hawks are like the pit bull of birds, basically. They will crash through windows, sticker briars, you name it, going after prey. Cooper's hawks are basically falcons or hawks, which on steroids, basically. They are accipiters, they're fast flyers, so they're just like falcons. So depending on what you're going for, if you want to hunt a lot of birds and things of that nature with your birds, you would take a falcon, something like a Cooper's hawk, sharp shin, things of that nature. If you wanted to go after rabbits, squirrels, the things that they would naturally go after, larger game, you would go after a red tail. More than likely a red tail hawk will be the one that you will hunt with, or Harris hawks, because Harris hawks are the only raptors that hunt in a group. So I have 4 of those. So I have 2 that I'm actually starting to want to breed. The other 2 females I'll fly together. We put them up in a cast of like 7, 8 birds sometime at a time, and we go out. These birds hunt cooperatively. So, I mean, it depends on really what you want to do with them. Because you don't really want something that you're going to get up at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning at 37 degrees and go hunt mice. So certain birds you wouldn't use depending on what it is that you want to go after.
Thanks. Here's another question. Can Rodney talk more about his children's and grandchildren's relationship with nature because of this legacy he started as a falconer and environmentalist?
Well, 2 of my sons became falconers. One is still a falconer now. He's a DC firefighter. My grandkids, I have a documentary actually with my son called Look Up on YouTube and everything. And you'll see my grandkids in there. They all handle the birds. They all fly the birds. They 11 and 8 now and 9. So they fly the birds. They hold the bird. All of my kids, I've been doing this almost 30 years. April 24th make 30 years of me being in conservation. So all of my kids been in it all of their lives. They cleaned the creek with us. They planted trees. They've done everything. They love it. I mean, it's just been a part of their life. So to them, it's normal, it's natural. So if you say, well, who does that? First person that they'll say is me. This is what I've done my whole life. We fish, we camp, we hike, we have every animal you can think of. So I never, by me not being afraid of them, there was no animals that my kids couldn't have that was legal to have, because I wanted them to understand the love for taking care of something, even at that age. So when you get older, you'll understand responsibility. You'll understand that love, that you are the caretaker of something, that what you do affects this for the rest of its life. So it starts to make, to me, it helped make some better decisions in their lives. Not that my kids were perfect and didn't make any mistakes or anything. Oh, no, not by a long shot. However, I do know that they'll tell you, one of the things my son called me a couple of weeks ago when we were laughing about, when he was about 8 years old, we were riding down the street. There was a turtle in the middle of the road. I slammed on brakes, stopped traffic, jumped out, got the turtle, put it in the car, drove on up to Oak Hill. My son said, Dad, why did you do that? You almost got hit. I said, because some idiot would have ran that turtle over just because it was in the road. He ended up doing the same thing. His daughter's in the car. He slams on brakes, get the turtle, and they asked him, Daddy, why did, and he said, Papa. And they just said, oh, and that was it. There was no explanation.
So Rodney, sort of connected to that. So you have kind of left this legacy for your kids. Someone's asking, when Rodney was a young person at the zoo, was there any person who noticed him or connected with him and helped him on his journey?
No, actually, you wanted to stay away from people because I was playing hooky from school. So I didn't really talk to a lot of people. And, you know, the first thing they would ask is, where's your parent? Because you're not supposed to be there unless you're 18 years old. So I pretty much stayed away from a lot of people. I would read the stone carvings on the out front that told about the animals, what they like to eat, where they're from, what they hunt, things like that. So I would just sit there and then watch them and observe some of the things that I sat there and read. I've always loved animals. I don't remember a time in my life that I didn't have some sort of animal. Fish, white mice, rats, birds, dogs, horses, something. I've always had an animal.
But really, I mean, you're kind of self-taught.
Yes. I mean, the thing is, you're going to learn the hard way. They always say experience is the best teacher. Most people in the inner city, you're not going to find a lot of different pets except for a cat or a dog. That's about it. So if you want to get something, when you are out catching crayfish, and you're 6 and 7 years old in the creek and all that, you get used to all of that stuff. You'll start learning what not to do and what you can do. And little by little, it becomes a day-to-day routine for you. So at the end, I guess you were self-taught. However, it was just life. It was you having fun. And at the end, you just knew what to do.
So I'm going to sort of combine two questions, one from Carol and one from Linda. And I don't know that you figured this out yet. Where is your place in Virginia? How far away from DC? And how do people without a car get to the sanctuary?
Well, I am from DC. It's about 3.5 hours, depending on where you are in DC. I am just over 200 miles from DC, basically. Usually if someone like the guy that came down a few weeks ago who wanted to come from New York, he caught the bus to the Greyhound. I picked him up at the Greyhound and he stayed at my house for that weekend. So if people, what we'll try to do, especially once it gets a little warmer, is when people want to do a volunteer day, we may have a volunteer day and we'll have someone, a couple people with SUVs to bring people down. And then at the end of the day, we'll take them back, something like that. Right now, there's nothing really set up that if you don't have a vehicle, because again, it's just me. It's not a mom and pop, it's just pop. So I'm trying to do everything.
No mom and pop, just pop.
Yeah, just pop, yeah.
Well, plus, we've talked too. I mean, the idea is that at some point, like groups will come, like groups of kids. Maybe they have like a bus or a van or something like that. So it's all a work in progress.
Well, there's a bus service in DC called Steve's Bus Service. I used to work for him about 20 years ago, maybe. or so. So I was in contact with him about renting a bus at certain times to be able to bring people down.
I don't think this is possible because I think they're all in the aviary out back, I believe. But someone said, can Rodney show us one of his falcons? Maybe that'll be for the next one.
I'm about to say, I have a hawk in here with me now, and it's in the bedroom. I'd have to disappear for a moment. So, I mean, that's up to you guys.
Well, let's see. Let's go through a few more. Let me make sure I'm not missing any questions. Carrie said, how did Rodney and Kate meet and what made them decide to tell this story?
That's on you, Kate.
Oh, somebody's saying, go get him or her, the Falcon. So you can do that. I'll tell the story. So I went to one of Rodney gives presentations and I heard about one, and I like birds of prey. So I thought, well, let me go check this out. Good way to spend a Sunday morning. I went. Rodney starts telling his story very casually, like, oh yeah, and I was like, what in the heck? And I went home and I Googled him and I thought, surely he's written a book or somebody's written a book about him. And there were some articles, but no books. So I think he was a little skeptical at first when I first brought up the idea with him. He can talk a little bit about that. But then we worked together, and lots of interviewing and lots of watching him in action. Here he is. Who you got there, Rodney?
This is Agnes. She's actually named after Agnes Nixon, the lady that used to write the stories, One Life to Live, All My Children. She bought this bird for me about 8 years ago. Unfortunately, she passed away. I believe it's going on 3 years now. So she got to see the bird and everything. Hey, Booty. Say hi.
So what kind of bird is Agnes?
Agnes is a Harris hawk. She's a Sonoran Harris hawk. So she's a large female. Females are usually 30 to 40% bigger than the males, but the males are a little faster. So the males are able to grab a hold of the prey, and then the females will come in and help make the kill. These are the birds that will hunt in a family group. So you can have some, I'll have one, someone else has one. These birds will sit, talk to each other. You let them go and they'll cooperatively hunt together. We stay together, chasing out game, and they'll go after it together.
So they actually work together with one another, not fighting over.
Right. These are called the wolf pack of the sky because they hunt in a pack just like wolves. They're the only species that do it. Yeah.
How old is she?
Agnes is 10 years old now.
What's her wingspan?
Her wingspan is about 3.5 feet. Usually from the top of their head to the tip of their tail, if that bird is 2 feet long, its wingspan will be 4 feet. So it's usually the length of their wing is about the same length from the tip to the tail. So it's usually about whatever that size is. If it averages out 18 inches, then they're 36 inches in wingspan.
Which raptors have the I guess the longest wingspan, would you say?
Well, golden eagles, any type of eagle, you're going to have a tremendous wingspan. Eurasian eagle owls, great horned owls have a nice wingspan. Depending on the size of the bird, usually everything from a red-tailed hawk on up will have a larger wingspan. So any bird's red-tailed hawk sizes and up, you'll have 4 foot, 5 foot, 6 foot on up. Usually anything red shoulder, 2.5, 3 feet, things of that nature, because they're a lot smaller birds.
Mm-hmm. Everybody's digging on Agnes. You use her a lot with you use her a lot when you work with kids, don't you?
Yes, this bird here, like I said, I try to explain, like the lady that asked about the connection with the birds, and I explained to them, all of my animals I love, they love me. You can tell someone that has a hawk to kiss their bird, and I bet you they'll look at you like you're crazy. But me, these are my babies. They love me, I love them, they heal me. So I explain to people every day we hurt from something. We missing someone. There's something going on that a part of us feels empty. But these animals help me to fill those parts that feel empty. And I know when I see other people, I've had 98-year-old ladies crying, hugging me, saying they've never been that close to a bird before, and thanking me. And I'm crying and I'm telling them, please stop crying, please stop, things of that nature. And to see that, I was so upset with myself at times because I almost missed out on this opportunity doing the nonsense and living the way that I was living before this. And knowing that you hurt so many people before, and now you're given an opportunity to heal. If you don't take advantage of that, you'll waste. So I explain to people, technically you die twice. Once when you physically die, and the last time when someone mentions your name. So when I'm feeling bad and my bird named after my mother or someone I love, throw the bird up. So first thing we say is they're up there looking down on us, right? When someone dies. So where's the bird? Up there, doing what? Looking down on us. So I tell people, close your ears and close your eyes. You can hear and listen to everything that bird is saying. You can see what they're telling you. All you have to do is use your heart. That's it. And they're not going to tell you what you want to hear. They'll tell you what the person that loved you would have told you. If you were wrong, you're going to hear this bird telling me you wrong. Get up, go do this, go. They're not going to say that, oh, you right. You was. You're going to hear the same thing you would have heard from your mother, your brother, your aunt, whoever it was. So that's just what I believe. Mm-hmm. Tell people it's all in what you believe. And I believe that the love I have with my animals and the connection that I have with them, that anyone can gain if that's what they choose to do, it's just irreplaceable.
And thank you for that, even though you almost made me cry on live webinar. So Agnes will never be released.
No, she can be released, not here. She's not native here. What falconers will do, because certain birds aren't native in different areas, however you would like to fly them, you can get those particular birds, but you'll put telemetry on them so that you can always locate that bird if it gets lost, because you don't want to introduce a species somewhere that it's not native to, because you can mess up the population and the ecosystem that way. So if that bird bred with other birds, now you have hybrid birds and no more purebred birds. So whenever you fly in your bird, you'll have telemetry and stuff on them. You'll make sure that your bird is at the weight for them to fly. You won't just go throw them up in the air, things of that nature, because not only do you want to make sure you get your bird back, you don't want to damage the population at all. You don't want to hurt the ecosystem at all.
Mm-hmm. So I know we're getting a little bit low on time, and something that I think is that I've witnessed you do that is so sort of freeing recently. Actually, I'm not sure when you started doing it, but occasionally when you trap a bird and take care of it until it's old enough to be released, you've recently, when you released that bird, started almost making it a little like ceremonial.
Well, no, that wasn't recent. No, I've been doing that since I've become a falconer, actually. What I do is usually when I trap a bird and I've had that bird, or if it was an adult that was caught accidentally, I will let people know that I have a bird that I'm releasing on this particular day and time, and that if anyone had any loved ones or wanted to say a prayer for anyone, send me their names, and I will make sure that I say a prayer and put their names in. And what I would do is then go release the bird. I would say a prayer. I would write down all the names, read off all of those names, film this so that I can put it on social media for the people who sent names in. And then I'll say a prayer and release the bird. And then people will I didn't realize how much it affected them until people started calling me, literally calling me, that got my number from somewhere, just saying, thank you so much. That really meant so much to me, crying and everything. And I'm explaining to them, no, it meant a lot more to me, because each time I get to do this, I hear my mother, I hear my brother, my family members, my loved ones, Monique, Tink, Benny, I hear all of them saying, that's right, man, keep going, keep going, keep. So on them days that you really want to stop, one of those animals will ask you, what's going on with you, man? And then you'll find yourself literally sitting down having a conversion with this animal, like you were talking to a person. You'll be pausing, hearing them talk back, and y'all are arguing. And if someone walked past, they would think I was crazy. I'm just as sane as the next man.
Indeed. Someone's asking about the location. So Dippy's Dream it's Charlotte Courthouse Virginia.
Virginia, 23923.
How far from Lynchburg? Someone was asking.
I'm an hour from Lynchburg. I actually have a set of twin daughters and grandchildren in Lynchburg. I used to do the powwow at the Monacon Indian Reservation up on Bear Mountain every year. So I'm an hour from Lynchburg now.
Okay. And how did you get paired? I don't know if this, I'm not sure I understand this. How did you get paired with your first bird? Maybe that means how did you trap your first bird, maybe?
Well, yeah, once you become a falconer, an apprentice, you'll go out, you'll set your trap. When you see a bird, you'll set your trap. When you trap that bird, if it's a juvenile, then you can put anklets and jess on that bird and begin working with it. If it's an adult, you have to release it immediately. What we try to do is feed it and then release it, put it in a room, let it eat. Because when that bird got on your trap, it was actually hunting. So we don't want that bird to get hurt or anything, looking for a meal. So we make sure that they have a meal and then release that particular bird. So you'll actually go out and trap your bird. And once you catch your first wild bird, the training begins. You have to get them to do this, sit on your glove. Then
and the very first time you trapped a bird, it didn't happen right away.
No, it took almost the entire season, my first year. Actually, almost the last day of trapping was the day I actually caught my first bird.
When you say the last day of trapping, you mean?
Trapping is being able to catch a bird legally. It used to be regulated by the feds also. The federal government was also involved. So there was a date between September the 10th and January the 6th. Because after that time, the weather starts to break. Now you'll start having leaves and stuff on the trees. You won't see these birds because they're now back in the woods and stuff like that. So you only have a certain amount of time that you can trap them and successfully hunt that bird during the course of that season.
Mm-hmm. Is Rodney serving as a mentor to any falconer students currently, or I guess they mean a sponsor?
Well, no, actually the last person that, well, technically I'm sponsoring a young man right now. His name is Daryl. He has to take his test. So once he takes his test and actually passes his test, then technically I'll be sponsoring him until he passes his test. And we have an aviary already set up for him. So once he passes his test, then I'll actually be sponsoring him.
Oh, nice. So Rodney, this has been great. As you know, I like talking to you. I'm sure you're getting sick of me at some point. But right here we have, hey, Agnes. That was for me, right?
Yeah, say hi, wave hi.
We have about a minute left. I don't know if there's anything else you care to say.
Just thank you for everyone that tuned in to listen and the comments and questions and everything. And I hope that someone got something from it. You know, if someone feels a little bit better than they felt an hour ago, then that's a blessing. And I'm glad that happened. So
I do.
I'm truly blessed to be a part of it. That's all.
That's great. Thank you so much. Oh, here's Chelsea back.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. What a great, fascinating conversation. Thank you both so much. I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. And I think I speak for a lot of people out there. I wish we had more time, but alas, it is time to go. You know, we can't continue to host these wonderful events without your patronage. So as a reminder, I have put the book link to Buy Bird Brother in the chat. It'll take you directly to the Politics and Prose website. If you're local, we do curbside pickup. Of course, our doors are open, so you can come in. And we also ship anywhere. So while you're there, after you purchase their book, I hope you'll visit our events page. We'd love to see you at another event soon. In the meantime, everybody enjoy this lovely afternoon. Thank you both, Kate and Rodney. What a lovely conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.